I have very little experience of what it is to be identified by others as Jewish, besides me self-identifying, because for the most part, most people see only one part of who I am. I was born in Mexico, and I lived there for 14 years. My dad's Mexican, my mom's a New Yorker. So I didn't grow up in a home that was expressively Jewish, like my dad's Catholic. What has become to feel like home has always been my Jewish experience at school. And when I was an undergraduate, spent most of Shabbat at Chabad. I ran the Jewish kitchen. I spent like a lot of time with the Jewish group, so they became my family, and my whole identification of who I am and what it means for me to be Jewish has always been with other students. But I have to understand and define in order to find a place that's just right. For me, it is a lot more about learning what are all the Jewish experiences and what it is that makes somebody Jewish. I had this conversation with my roommate where we were talking about, oh, why to go to Chabad, and like, oh, are you becoming more Jewish? And I'm like, no, you don't become more Jewish. You are Jewish. Whatever level of like practicing or not practicing, you are Jewish. And he's like, no, not even referring to observance. And I'm like, even without referring to observance, if you're Jewish, you're Jewish. There isn't a more Jewish or less Jewish. You just are. And that is something that makes me very happy and makes me very comfortable about Judaism, because I grew up in southern Mexico where the norm is, I think, over 90% of the population is Catholic, and if you're Catholic, if you're a good Catholic, you go to church, and if you don't go to church, people talk about it, and it's a lot of judgment of, well, your relationship with God is reflected by showing up to church, and that was never the case with my mother. And like, my mother was always the outsider, and I always felt as an outsider, even though I was taken to church when I was a little kid. And at a certain point when I was 8 or 9, I was like, no, this doesn't feel like me. As I've grown older, I've become more observant of Jewish rituals. And I suppose it's also bizarre because I'm at a point where I know more about observing Judaism than my mother does. And that's odd, because to me my mother was always like, she was the Jewish person that I identified with. It's like, okay, if I do not fit within this realm of what it means to be Catholic in Yucatan and being Mexican, then I am this other, yet now I am different. Bais Chana gives me, to a certain extent, a place to figure out where to start to learn, because there is so much out there that I don't know about, that I would like to know about, yet because of the vastness, it can be overwhelming to say, I want to learn it all, because you just can't do that. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's like, okay, well, if I want to go to A, if I want to start to be observant of Shabbos, what does that mean? And what are the different levels? Does it just mean that I go to Shabbat dinner? You cannot identify what is important until you see what all of the spectrum of practice is. We never get to see how other people evolve and learn and become who they are to be. It is a very comforting thing to know that on a great level we are all searching. Coming to Bais Chana has made me aware of what it is that I am doing as I am searching for my Jewish identity, and what are the possibilities of who I may become.